Point, gentlemen. Jim Hummel of the Hummel Report. A question for for Congressman Langeman. Please.
Congressman, President Obama is coming to town next week, partially on your behalf. You know, there's been a discussion around the country. There's some Democrats who've, quite frankly, with his precipitous decline in ratings, popularity, not wanted him to come for various reasons. Of course, we're a blue state, had clearly supported Obama despite that fall. I have two questions for you. Can you grade his performance the last 2 years and tell me what his biggest failing has been in your mind over those 2 years?
Well, first of all, I give the president high marks for attempting to deal with some of the biggest challenges that are facing us right now. Unfortunately, I don't give him high marks on being able to communicate a message and the things that we have done to help the American people. It's been source of frustration that the word hasn't gotten out. All the good things that have been done to invest in things like health information technology and alternative energy and education. In any other year, this president and this Congress would have been given extraordinary credit for the pieces of legislation that have been passed that have been good for our country.
So you think the policies are sound, that just the message isn't getting out?
I think that's basically that's the case. But
and what's his biggest
by the way,
failing?
the unfortunate thing is that we don't get to control the circumstances under which we govern, and so much has been thrown at this president and this Congress in terms of which we've seen coming home to roost over the last 10 years or so of the Republicans in control of Congress. And I believe this, again, plenty of blame to go around, so I don't want to get into a partisan, too much of a partisan thing. But the reality is the president has had to deal with a near economic meltdown.
What's his biggest failing?
I think that probably being able to communicate the message properly that we have passed good things for the American people that are going to yield dividends and benefits down the road in terms of job creation and a stronger economy. And I will predict that in the very near future, in the first several quarters of next year and going and beyond, that all of a sudden you're going to see a very strong economic rebound. And I hope that it's the Democrats that get the credit for it under their leadership, because in many ways the Republicans have tried to fight us tooth and nail and many of the policies that we've been put forward that have been good for the American people and that will yield benefits and job creation for the future.
Mr. Zakaria.
Same question, grade and biggest failing.
Sure. I think that the president could have gotten much higher grades. I mean, he's an engaging person and he's an interesting figurehead for our nation, but the fact of the matter is he has focused way too much on a single issue, health care, and in the process has not looked at the financial or fiscal fundamentals of the United States government, and that has caused the recession that we are now in to be broader and deeper. I think it is a failing on his part because it's an area where he's not terribly well schooled. Like Mr. Langevin, he's never had to run a budget in a business and doesn't understand the consequences when you can't do that and have it come out. It's great to be able to turn on the printing presses and just make some more money, but unfortunately that has dug us into the hole that we're in, and that is the greatest failing.
Congressman.
Well, I'll point to the fact that just by way of the policies that were created under Mr. Zakaria's party that have led to in many ways the mess that we're in. Lack of oversight on Wall Street. It was like a wild west on Wall Street. There wasn't proper oversight and regulation in that area. I think that's a travesty, and unfortunately, the American people have been dealing with the downturn because of those failed policies. We've tried to right the ship. And the things that we've had to have been done in terms of turning the economy around have been very difficult. And
thanks, Congressman. Mr. Zakaria, take the opposite point of the whole thing. Some have said without the stimulus that was passed, the nation would be in a Great Depression.
I disagree totally. I think that the market forces would have corrected themselves. There would have been some pain and suffering. People who, for instance, in 2000
pain and suffering, maybe 20% unemployment. That's a little bit.
I don't think that. So? I think that the pain and suffering would have come with the people who are stockholders of AIG. They'd have lost their holdings, but the insurance policies that AIG maintained would have been sold off to some other entity that was better. I mean, I think that also Mr. Langevin's discussion of a Wild West show being run by the Republicans is a little bit out of line. I would argue quite the opposite, that the financial meltdown that we saw based on the housing bubble was due to a long series of misguided government regulations that insisted that certain loans be made to people that could not pay them back, and went so far as to then guarantee those loans using the quasi-governmental agencies of Fannie and Freddie. I think that there is some blame on every administration going back to President Carter on that one, and as a result, we collectively have put ourselves into this by over-regulating.
So the government shouldn't have intervened the way that they had when George Bush was the president.
Absolutely.
You think that was wrong?
I think that, oh yeah, absolutely. The TARP program that Bush came up with should not have been done. I think that there would have been corrections under existing programs, and that nothing is too big to fail, so you'll let it fail. When I say nothing is too big to fail, the United States government is not too big to fail, and we are in a perilous situation because of the fact that we have spent so much money that we're undercutting the financial foundations of the republic. And I think we have to hop to the issue of correcting that right away. Our immediate problem, our biggest national security problem, our biggest cultural and social problem is the finances of the federal government, and we got to fix it quick.
Congressman.
You know, I find some of the things that Mr. Zakaria says both offensive and outrageous, and that's the problem with the message that hasn't gotten out by the president and the Congress. When he says that we didn't need to intervene, that the market forces would have taken care of everything. If that had happened, if we had just let it go, we would have been in a far worse situation, and we would have had a second Great Depression. By the way, many of the things that the Congress acted on were things that were agreed upon by people like Ben Bernanke, a Republican, a student of the Great Depression, someone that was recognized for his understanding of how the economy works, and even he and Hank Paulson under the Bush administration, and in a bipartisan way, said that the government has to step in aggressively and prevent the economy from going into a meltdown. That's what we did, but these were tough, courageous decisions that had to be made, and had it not been made, it would have been far worse than what it is now. How do you prove a negative? It's easy to say I wouldn't have done that, and the bad things wouldn't have happened.
That's a lot of pain, Mr. Zakaria. That's a lot of pain to stand by. That's a lot. Excuse me, Congressman. That's a lot of pain to stand by. That'd be tough to tell your constituents.
I think that Mr. Paulson, despite the fact that he was a cabinet secretary in a Republican administration, may have been thinking a little bit more about his former firm, Goldman Sachs, than he was thinking about the American people. I think that if Mr. Langevin would like to study the history of Great Depressions, I would refer him to the Great Depression of 1920, which the government stood back, let market forces take over and do what they always do, and there was about a 6-month problem, after which there was a very robust recovery.
Thanks, Mr. Zakaria. Arlene Violet, question for the Congressman.
Congressman, you Washington folks like to talk about bringing home the bacon, so I have a question that's a due diligence type of question. Your fellow Democrat, Joe Paolino, is talking about the fact that this airport train station is a $267 million boondoggle. As you know, tons of federal money was poured into that. In addition, sir, Congress constantly throws money at Amtrak because it's always running as a deficit. Paolino's charge is that now the Amtrak isn't even going to stop in Warwick. In addition, today's news, Go Local Prov, is reporting that the speed train of Amtrak is going to stop in Woonsocket and not in Providence as well. So you were a supporter of this $260 million interlink. What kind of due diligence was done on this, including saying to Amtrak, hey, if we build it, you will come? Or is this just the train to nowhere?
I think that the changes that have been made at the airport and bring the new intermodal center there are going to yield benefits for generations to come.
Even if
and it's created
no
a
train
lot of
stops
jobs.
there?
Well, there are. We already have the commuter rail that's going to stop
MBTA.
there from Boston to all the way through to Wickford Junction eventually.
It can help Kurt Spalding's people come down here and still live in Massachusetts, sir?
It's going to go both ways. We're going to have Rhode Islanders that are going to go up to Boston to work or to shop or what have you, and you're going to have people from Massachusetts coming down to Rhode Island, whether to use the airport or to that may live here in Rhode Island. I think it's a positive step forward in bringing intermodal rail
but
to
sir,
our
did
to our
anybody
state.
ask Amtrak? I mean, to me, that's a fundamental question. That if I build
Yes.
this, will you come? Did
Yes.
you, as a congressman, when this project was proposed,
Yes.
check with Michael Dukakis, another Democrat who runs that operation, to say to him, "Are you going to to stop at this if we build $260 million worth of infrastructure.
I've met with Amtrak along with Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse.
Did they lie to you?
Kennedy. We're pressing them to come here to make sure that Amtrak would stop it. It hasn't happened yet, but I predict that it will eventually. And I'm going to continue to press Amtrak to make sure, hopefully someday, that they do stop here at the new Intermodal Center in Warwick.
If I may, Arlene, I think what you're pointing at is a failure in marketing. And that's going to come as no surprise from a marketing guy, but the fact of the matter is you first have to decide who's going to buy your product before you go out and build the product. I think ultimately, since the train station is in place, there will be trains going through it, and we will have people on those trains. Whether or not any of the initial estimates that were put out there as justification for spending that kind of money are ever met is problematic in my mind. I think, however, that ultimately we have to find ways to get people to move around that don't use automobiles.
Congressman Langevin again, not a white elephant, not a boondoggle.
I do not believe that's a boondoggle at all. I think that the Intermodal Center that was created in Warwick is going to be a very positive thing for economic development, for job creation, for getting people out of their vehicles and using the rail system for light rail. It's going to be a very good thing as we extend the train down to Wickford Junction and hopefully down to URI at some point and into Lincoln. And by the way, I also am a very big supporter of high-speed rail. We really don't have real high-speed rail in the Northeast Corridor, and Amtrak has come out with a 30-year plan for bringing rail here.
Thank you.
I'm not happy with, by the way, the fact that they're saying
we
it's going
can
to bypass
I can let you address that maybe
Providence, but we're going to try to
thanks,
change
Congressman,
that.
I can let you address it. Certainly good news for Kurt Spalding, though, whatever the case may be. Anyway, former Save the Bay.